Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Uxcel webinar. My name is Sofia, and I'm the community manager here and your host for today's session. If you are joining us for the first time, again, welcome. This webinar is a part of our free webinar series where every single month we bring in the best design experts from all around the world to share their real life insights, expertise, and journeys in UX. Today, we have a very exciting guest, but before we dive into the whole thing, we make sure to do these live so that you get the chance to directly chat with the expert. So, help us get to know you. Tell us your name, where you're coming from. I can already see a lot of you joining, so welcome. And we cannot see or hear anything. Is it working for everyone? Let's see. So we have a few people who can and a few people who cannot. Okay. McLean, perhaps refresh and check the volume. Okay, good. Tell us where you're coming from, your name, and that being said, we reserve the 15 minutes of the session for a live Q&A. But if you have any questions for our guest even before the Q&A, feel free to post, and we will try to answer as many as possible in the Q&A section of the webinar. That's a mouthful. And if you want to catch past episodes, you can always find it on our YouTube channel in the lives section. Without further ado, today we will be talking about red flags in UX portfolios. What are they? How to fix them? What are the better solutions? And for that, we have Réka joining us from UXfolio. She is a product designer and a portfolio expert. She's spent a lot of time reviewing portfolios, seeing what the best practices are, and today she's here to spill the tea with us. Also, she will be reviewing 2 portfolios live. So if you want to see her insights in action, feel free to stay until the very end and enjoy. But firstly, Réka, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sophia, for the introduction, and thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here, and I can't wait to dive into our topic and share some common red flags in UX portfolios.
Thank you. And for those who haven't had the chance to read a little bit about you, can you tell us about your background and how you got into UX design?
Of course. As you mentioned, currently I'm a product designer at UXfolio, which is a portfolio builder tailored specifically for UX designers. So this role is particularly meaningful to me because I get to help fellow designers build successful portfolios and advance in their careers. I know firsthand how challenging it can be to start a career in UX, as I'm a career switcher myself. Before transitioning into UX, I worked as an English teacher. But I was always drawn to design. So I started taking courses, working on side projects, and building my portfolio to make the switch. And since my transition, I've worked in various environments, from a small startup where I was the only designer to a big agency working with international clients. And now I'm part of a product team at UXfolio, where my role goes beyond designing. I also review portfolios, research portfolio trends, and talk to recruiters and hiring managers to understand what they are looking for in a designer's portfolio. And to share the valuable insights I gained through all this, I speak at events and webinars, and most recently, I've started creating content on LinkedIn to reach a broader audience. So in a way, teaching is still part of what I do, but now I'm helping designers build standout portfolios.
That's really wonderful. I love that you kept the teaching part of it. Okay, and today you will be sharing all that you've gathered from the people you've been talking to and all your research. Very excited to see what you prepared. So everyone, Réka prepared a little presentation. She will soon bring it up on the screen. Just give us a few seconds.
Yeah, of course. So I will share my screen right now. Here we go. So, one of the fastest ways to level up your UX portfolio is to eliminate red flags, those sneaky mistakes that can make recruiters lose interest in seconds and move on to the next candidate. But before we dive into what the most common red flags are, let's take a step back and understand how recruiters actually review portfolios. At UXfolio, we conducted research on this, and the results were eye-opening. 80% of recruiters spend 3 minutes or less on a portfolio. That's not a lot of time, but it's more than enough for them to spot the red flags. That's why it's crucial to identify and fix these mistakes before they cost you opportunities. And in this presentation, I'll share the 7 most common UX portfolio red flags and show you exactly how to fix them so your portfolio stands out for the right reasons. And let's dive in. So the first red flag is the overwhelming first impression. You have less than 3 minutes to convince a recruiter, so the first impression is crucial. And if your portfolio is cluttered, difficult to navigate, or overloaded with unnecessary animations and visuals, it can create a mental overload, and recruiters might close the tab and move on. And to fix this, you should optimize your portfolio for time to value and make it content-driven. And to do that, remove unnecessary visuals and effects, and keep only what adds value to avoid distractions. Then design a simple and intuitive navigation. Recruiters should instantly understand what your portfolio consists of by looking at your navigation. And make your hero section clean and concise. Use a content-focused layout that puts your value proposition front and center, ensuring it stands out instantly. So by streamlining the layout and removing distractions, you'll ensure that recruiters quickly see what matters the most, which is your content. And at UXfolio, we interviewed senior designers from top companies to understand what they look for in portfolios. And on the importance of a strong first impression, Paul Farino said that some people try to be too unique and they end up with a lot of animations and extra flair in their portfolios that don't contribute to the story. It just makes it a poor experience. And this is exactly why a clean and focused layout and an intuitive navigation are so important. And now let's look at 2 examples built in UXfolio where designers have nailed the first impression. Both portfolios feature a clear navigation and a content-focused hero section, so the value proposition and the work stand out instantly. And the next red flag is closely related to the first impression, but this time we are zooming in on the headline. Your headline serves as a hook. It's what grabs a recruiter's attention and makes them want to learn more. And if it's too vague or generic, like the famous "I am a passionate UX designer," it fails to communicate what sets you apart from other candidates. And to make your headline stand out, craft one that clearly conveys your unique value proposition. And you can do this by focusing on your key skills. What are you best at? Your area of specialization. Do you focus on fintech, e-commerce, or another industry? And relevant industry experience. So highlight any significant experience that adds credibility and is relevant for the job. Also, keep it concise. Around 60 characters is usually enough. Any additional details can go to your About page or section. And in an interview with us, Dan Moll emphasized that a portfolio should clearly communicate why you are a good fit for the position and why they can't live without you. So this highlights the importance of a strong, specific headline that instantly showcases your unique value. And here are 2 examples of great headlines from our users. Lindsay's headline clearly states her career level, her years of experience, and specialization. She says, "With over a decade of experience, I specialize in e-commerce experiences and helping small businesses." She also adds that she is an expert in design systems, giving us a clear picture of her strengths. And Max's headline highlights his location, which is very useful if location is relevant for the role, and specialization in designing responsive websites. Again, it instantly communicates how he can add value. And let's see the next red flag. Surprisingly, many designers fall into this pitfall, which is inconsistent visual design. If your portfolio lacks a cohesive design language, it can look unpolished and may give recruiters the impression that you lack UI skills and attention to detail. And to create a cohesive browsing experience, maintain a consistent design language throughout your portfolio. And here's how. Define a color palette, stick to a set of colors that align with your personal brand. Then select a font pair, use a distinctive font for your headings and a clean and easy to read sans serif font for your body text. And ensure visual consistency. Maintain a uniform style for visuals and device mockups to keep everything polished and professional. And Tony Ope shared that when reviewing portfolios, he usually does a quick scroll through, searching for visual cues, proving that the person has a good understanding of design. He looks out for things like proper color, good spacing, typography, layout, and navigation. And this highlights the importance of a consistent visual design as recruiters are assessing your design skills at a glance. And in this example, the designer has maintained consistency by using the same colors and fonts on both the homepage and the About page. So while browsing her portfolio, you get a really cohesive and polished experience. And with UXfolio, maintaining a consistent design language is super easy. It provides curated color palettes and font pairs that you can easily customize to match your personal brand and apply across your portfolio pages. It's like having an out-of-the-box design system, ensuring that your portfolio looks cohesive and professional with minimal effort. Let's see the next common red flag. And it is treating your portfolio as an archive of every project you've ever worked on. Recruiters typically review 1 or 2 case studies in the first round, so if your portfolio is cluttered with outdated or irrelevant projects, they might miss your strongest work. So before sending your portfolio for a job application, curate your case studies and include only 3 or 5 of your strongest and most relevant projects. This way, your portfolio will feel curated and intentional. And a great way to filter your case study selection is to ask yourself these 2 questions. Am I proud of this? And does this showcase relevant skills for this specific job? And by using this approach, you'll ensure that your portfolio highlights your best work and aligns with the role. And to guide recruiters towards your best work, place your strongest and most relevant case study at the top and highlight it visually. And Jared Spool, a name I'm sure you're all familiar with, explained why tailoring your case study selection to the specific job is so important. He put it simply. If the job is to build a design system, he wants to see that the candidate has designed a design system before. Of course, you won't always have a perfectly matched project for every role, but try to include the most relevant ones. For example, if the job is UI focused, highlight the most UI heavy projects. The goal is to show recruiters you have the skills they're looking for. And here you can see 2 strategies for highlighting a case study. In the first example, the case study is highlighted by using a different background color, while in the second one, the designer used the full width layout to guide viewers towards the first case study. Another common mistake is neglecting the case study thumbnails or treating them as an afterthought. But they are extremely important. Think of them as book covers for your case studies. A strong thumbnail should be both visually engaging and informative, motivating viewers to click on it. If your thumbnails aren't well designed, you risk losing opportunities because recruiters might skip your best work. And to make your case study thumbnails effective, ensure they are both informative and visually appealing. And here's how. Craft a compelling title and subtitle. Make sure your title is more than just the name of the product. It should also convey the focus of the project, your contribution, and impact to make it clear why recruiters should click on it. And design a strong visual. Feature a key screen from the project, ideally in a clean device mockup. And avoid overly complex and detailed designs, as they can make your thumbnails look cluttered. And treat your thumbnails as a cohesive set, not just individual elements. Since they take up the most space on your homepage, they should work well together. And use the same layout, background, and mockup style across all of them for a polished and professional look. And here are some case study thumbnails created in UXfolio, showcasing different layouts and styles while incorporating the 3 key elements I mentioned earlier, so the title, subtitle, and visual. And there's no single right way to design thumbnails. But what's important is to make sure that they are consistent and work well together as a cohesive set that aligns with the portfolio's overall design language. And with UXfolio's Thumbnail Designer, you can create visually appealing thumbnails in just a few clicks. Simply upload your screenshots, then choose from a variety of layouts, device mockups, and background styles, all without needing an external design tool. And the best part is that your thumbnails will be consistent and perfectly aligned with your portfolio style. And after reviewing your work, recruiters also assess cultural fit. Without any personal details, it's hard for them to connect with you on a personal level. So sharing a bit about your background, interests, or values makes you more relatable. That's why it's crucial to balance your professional and personal profiles in your About page or section. Start with your professional journey, share your background, key roles, and what led you to UX. If you transition from another field, highlight transferable skills that add value to your design work. And add a personal touch. Briefly mention your hobbies, interests, or side projects, especially those related to creativity or design. Also, you can include any awards or certifications to reinforce your expertise. And include testimonials. Featuring quotes from colleagues or managers adds instant credibility and gives recruiters insight into what it's like to work with you. And Susan Weinschenk, author of 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People, highlighted how powerful telling your personal story is, as it helps hiring people understand where you are coming from and what you can bring to the table. And here are 2 About pages created in UXfolio, each taking a slightly different approach. In the first example, the designer first shares her professional journey, then transitions into her hobbies outside of work, drawing connection between the two, helping recruiters see how her hobbies influence her work. And in the second example, a designer at Oracle starts with her work experience and skills, followed by a short paragraph on her personal interests. And what makes this page truly stand out is the gallery of personal photographs that add a unique and human touch to it. And after convincing recruiters with both your work and your personality, it's time for them to get in touch. But if they cannot find your contact information easily, they might just give up and move on to the next candidate. So it is crucial to make it effortless for recruiters to reach out. And to do this, include your email and professional social media profiles like LinkedIn, Behance, or Dribble in your portfolio. Place them in the footer or navigation so they are visible on every page. And add the contact section at the end of case studies, giving viewers a clear call to action after reading your case study. And you can see different approaches in these examples. In the first one, the designer added a dedicated contact page with a contact form. In the second one, there is a contact CTA in the footer and a LinkedIn profile link. Finally, in the example on the right, a CTA section placed at the bottom of the case study, followed by a section with links to other case studies. So this is a great way to end the case study. And now, let's recap all the red flags I talked about so you can maximize the impact of those 3 minutes recruiters spend on your portfolio. The first is the overwhelming first impression. Optimize your portfolio for time to value by removing any unnecessary elements and focusing on the content. Then, no clear value proposition. Clearly state your unique value in your headline. Inconsistent visual design. Use a consistent design language throughout your portfolio. Uncurated case study selection. Curate your case studies and include only 3 to 5 of your strongest and most relevant work. Ineffective case study thumbnails. Make sure your thumbnails are both visually appealing and informative, teasing what the case study is about. Not telling your personal story. Add an about page or section where you let your personality shine. And missing contact information. Make your email and social media profiles easily accessible on all portfolio pages. And after removing all these red flags, it's time to take your portfolio to the next level. So I will share some extra tips to make it truly stand out. Create a cohesive personal brand. And this is easier than you think. Add a logo, a browser favicon, and a custom domain with your name to your portfolio to make a professional and memorable first impression. Then, tailor your portfolio for the job. I can't stress this enough. If you want to stand out, create a version of your portfolio tailored for the specific role. For example, include key skills from the job description in your headline, or change the order of the case studies to highlight the most relevant one. And in UXfolio, you can easily duplicate your portfolio as many times as you'd like and select which of your case studies you want to add to it. This way, you don't have to worry about deleting things or keeping a version history. And last but not least, get feedback early and often. So don't build your portfolio in isolation because you can easily get stuck in a perfect portfolio paralysis. Share your portfolio early with mentors and peers and iterate based on their feedback. And to make this process easier, we created review mode in UXfolio, which allows reviewers to add comments and reactions directly on your portfolio. And you can collect all the feedback in one place. And today, we have a special offer for you. With the codes you see here, you can try UXfolio Plus at a discounted price and enjoy all the amazing features I have talked about during this presentation. So just sign up on uxfol.io, and when you're ready to upgrade, you can redeem the discount at the checkout. So don't miss out and start building your portfolio today. And make sure that you remove all the red flags so that you maximize the impact of your portfolio and make the most out of those 3 minutes. And thank you so much for listening. It's back to you, Sophia.
Okay, thank you so much. So thank you for sharing all the red flags. Thank you for sharing also what it looks like when you do it the other way around and when it looks good. What I'm interested in knowing before we head into the Q&A, we have a lot of questions, so we've got a lot to tackle. But from everything that you shared right now, what is the one red flag you think is the most underrated or the one mostly overlooked by designers, but can really make the biggest difference in their portfolios?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most underrated red flag is the missing value proposition. I often see otherwise strong portfolios with overly generic headlines, and this can actually hurt the designer's chances because your headline is your hook. It's the first thing recruiters see, and it sets the tone for the whole portfolio. And clear value proposition ensures that you stand out instantly and makes it obvious why you're the right fit.
Makes sense. And one more question before we head into the Q&A. So everyone, you can drop your questions here. On a scale from 1 to 10, how important it is to have a great portfolio compared to your, a LinkedIn page and being well edited, well representable, and a resume. Especially, I mean, we're talking about UX positions now, so that's why this question, I think it pops up very often in our community.
Yes, well, they can't really be compared because all of them play a certain role in the hiring process. But if I had to rate their impact, I'd give the portfolio a 10 because it's the one that truly makes or breaks your chances of getting an interview, as it showcases your skills, approach to design, and problem-solving abilities in a way that a resume or a LinkedIn profile simply can't.
Thank you. Okay, without further ado, and I don't want to take any more of everyone's precious time, let me go back to our questions and start from maybe the first one. And it's something that actually applies in many other comments as well. But what do you do if you don't really have a specific area of expertise? How do you best present your skills?
Mm-hmm. You can highlight anything in your headline that sets you apart. It doesn't have to be a specific area of expertise. You can highlight your experience. So if you worked on a project in e-commerce, then highlight that in your headline. And another strategy is to do it the other way around. So if you would really like to work in a specific industry, for example, or in a specific area of design, then highlight that somehow in your headline.
So if they don't have any work experience, they can do what?
If you don't have any work experience, then one great strategy is to highlight the industry that you worked in before you transition to UX. So you can make a connection between the two. If you have experience in marketing, then you can highlight that in your headline and stand out that way. So focus on your transferable skills from previous roles.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, and thank you, mysterious stranger, for the question. About that, kind of continuing into the whole story there, we have a question from King Muse. Should you apply for a position you don't have a case study specifically for, but maybe you have some other great studies?
Yes, definitely. So as I said during the presentation, this is not a deal breaker. It's just a way to stand out. But if you don't have a case study specifically related to that position, that is not a problem. Just try to prioritize the ones that are the closest to it. So if it's a UI focused position, then highlight your projects where you had more UI work.
Thank you. So sorry, just going through all the questions. There's quite a lot, but this one is very interesting from Kayla. I had feedback from senior designers who said that they like my unique creative portfolio. Unfortunately, they weren't hiring, but maybe. However, it seems that companies want a more typical design. I guess we're talking here about like a standardized design layout rather than portfolio layout rather than like a super creative piece. What are your thoughts? Do you think one is better than the other or should be used in different situations maybe?
Yeah, this is a common misconception about what recruiters are looking for in portfolios. Many people think that recruiters want to see something really different and really unique in each portfolio, but it is actually the opposite. So they don't really have time to figure out how your portfolio works. They prefer formats that they're familiar with. They just want to quickly access all the information that they need and see whether you're a good fit for the position and have the right experience for it. So just follow the I would say default common portfolio formats to make it easier for recruiters to quickly scan your portfolio and get what they need out of it.
Makes sense. Thank you. And thank you, Kyla, for the question. This is one I actually also had. So for number 2, this is relating to the 3 steps at the very end of your presentation. What do you do if you're applying for multiple jobs? So how do you actually tailor it for the job?
Yeah, you can create multiple versions of your portfolio for each job, actually. This is the best way to ensure that your portfolio stands out for the specific job. And certain tools allow you to duplicate your portfolio and have multiple versions. And you can easily connect domains to the different versions and send out the right one for the right position.
And we have one from LinkedIn. So how do you list NDA projects? I think this is a question we cannot skip whenever we're talking about portfolio. So what is your advice here?
Yes, this is a question I get asked a lot. First of all, always respect your NDA because this shows recruiters and hiring managers that you are professional and trustworthy. And you can still showcase NDA protected work if you abstract it enough. So don't show the details. You can hide the company name, the logo, and rebrand it. Just be explicit that you did that and present the project in generic terms. So you can still outline the problem and highlight the value of your work. And another smart strategy when it comes to showcasing sensitive work in your portfolio is to protect it with passwords. So it is only available to those whom you share the password with. And this way, your portfolio can be public, but your more sensitive projects will be protected.
Thank you. Wow, so many, so many questions. Let me see. So, Oh, again from Mysterious Stranger, can we get by with the constant editing of our portfolios by making separate categories of them depending on the job? So instead of creating different portfolios, I think you kind of touched upon this, but is there a workaround way where we separate categories instead of the whole portfolio redoing?
Yeah, of course. So it's tricky because it's actually not the best strategy to create a version for every single job application you want to apply for. But you can rather make categories of portfolios. So you can make a portfolio where you highlight your UI skills. You can make one where you highlight your research skills. You can make another one where you highlight your interaction design skills. So maybe by making different categories of portfolios is more efficient than making a new version for each job application.
Thank you. Okay, so Painted Jane says, I was a product owner and business analyst who also did UX design and only recently learned some of the terminology. I'm trying to transition my career. Is using my markups from old project good enough? I think this is a very vague but also very specific case. But I would also like to hear what you think. You mentioned about using your previous skills or previous projects into your new portfolio. So maybe you can give Jane here advice.
Yes, I would definitely include the projects related to your previous roles, because these roles and the skills that you had in these roles are super important in UX. So definitely highlight them, because if you were a business analyst, then it means that you are really good with data, which is a great skill as a product designer. So you can even emphasize that in your headline.
Perfect. Before we move on to another question, I think we're firing them left and right. I just wanted to remind everyone that we will soon move into a two live portfolio reviews from our community members. So just bear with us a few more minutes until we get to some other questions. Maybe we will not be able to cover everything, but if you have any outstanding questions, feel free to send them over to us, and Réka and I will try to send you some answers if possible. Yeah, we have another question. So do you recommend including raw data like screenshots of Figma or survey photos of user testing, etc.?
Definitely. These artifacts all add credibility and authenticity to a case study, so I would definitely include them. However, make sure that you don't add overly detailed images, or if you do, provide context for them so that the hiring manager doesn't have to read each sticky note on a screenshot to get the idea.
So how do we know what's the perfect balance then in including raw data?
I would say that only include data that is important and shaped your solution. So don't include every artifact that you've gathered during the project, but only include the ones that really contributed to the final solution.
So the ones that had an actual impact.
Exactly.
Awesome. On that note, we have a similar question here from Karina. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced. What are the most important information I should have when explaining my case study? Are all the steps of designing to be included and explained in detail, or is there another approach to this?
Yeah, definitely. There are some key components that an effective case study should have. First of all, you have to set the scene. You should give an overview of the project or the feature that you designed, then present the problem and the solution upfront. And then after you sparked curiosity, you should go into the process. But the process itself shouldn't be a step-by-step report of everything you did during the project. So just walk viewers through the key stages of the project and highlight key insights from research, your iterations. If you conducted usability testing, then include the key insights that shaped your solution. And after these key stages, and then a closing section is also very important. And here you should present the final outcome and then the impact of the project. So it's really great if you can have some measurable impact, but if you don't have measurable impact, then you can add quotes from usability testing or quotes or testimonials from clients or stakeholders. And don't forget to also include your learnings from the projects, because this is a great way to show that you can reflect.
Thank you. Another question we often get is, does the amount of cases on the portfolio matter? Is it okay to use Behance or should I have my own website? So let's first dissect the first part of the question. So how many case studies should be in one portfolio? What do you think is like the optimum number? And then we can address the other question as well.
Mm-hmm. In general, you should have between 3 to 5 case studies in your portfolio, but this depends on your career level. So for more junior designers who don't have that much experience, usually even 1 or 2 strong case studies can be enough. And more experienced designers are expected to have 4 to 6 case studies. So it depends on your career level. And what was the second part of the question, Sophia? Can you remind me?
What is the benefit of having your own website for the portfolio versus putting all the work on Behance or any other platform like that?
Yeah, I definitely recommend having a personal website because as UX designers, it is more professional and provides credibility. And with an easy-to-use no-code tool like UXfolio, you can get your portfolio website up and running during your lunch break. So it's actually easier than building a slide deck in a design tool or setting up a Behance profile. So I definitely recommend a portfolio.
And let's see. Maybe this question. Oh, sorry, no. Sorry. Not this one. This one. Because I'm sorry, Sam. This was just the answer to the question, like the pros and cons of having your own website. But from Joshi, how important is mobile tablet responsive use for the portfolio?
Very important. So your portfolio should be responsive, because this also shows your design skills.
Yeah, also helps the recruiter actually access it, because you never know when somebody is using a laptop or versus their phone. And with that, we've come to, I think, all the time that we have left for the Q&A. If we get some other questions, maybe we can address them. But Réka, I would give you the chance to apply the learnings and everything we discussed today onto actually some real portfolios. Also, would love to thank the members who sent us their portfolios for review. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you also have any questions for Réka while she's reviewing her portfolio, please feel free to post it here in the comments so that, maybe we can get some discussion started.
Yes, I will share the first portfolio. So I will simulate what a recruiter or a hiring manager typically does when reviewing a portfolio. And remember, they often spend just a few minutes scanning through. So I'll go through with that mindset, focusing on first impressions, navigation, headline, case studies, and personal details. And let's start with the first impression. So right away, the bold accent colors and grid layout make this portfolio stand out. It's got personality. So it definitely grabs my attention, and I'm curious to dive in and see more. And after the first impression, a recruiter would look at the navigation to understand the structure of the portfolio. And here you can see that we have a hamburger menu. which adds an extra click for viewers. And since there are only 3 links, you can easily display them side by side at the top of the page for quicker access, keeping the hamburger menu only for mobile. This way, the navigation is more intuitive and user-friendly. And let's take a closer look to the hero section. So your headline establishes credibility and highlights your expertise in both business and design, but it is a bit vague. Based on this, a recruiter doesn't know what sets you apart from other candidates. So instead of just listing the roles and your education, I recommend adding a short and impactful statement that highlights your unique strengths, specialization, and approach in design. And regarding the image in the hero section, it's up to you whether you include a profile picture or not. But if you do choose to include one, consider scaling it down slightly to keep the focus on the content. A larger, more prominent image can be used on the About page or section where the emphasis is on you as a person. This way, the hero section stays clean and content-driven. You also included the My Story button in the hero section, but a more effective CTA would be a contact option, such as a mail to link or a link to your LinkedIn profile. So this would make it easier for recruiters to reach out quickly. And let's move on to the work section. The work section is positioned right below the hero section, exactly where recruiters expect to find it. So the placement is spot on. And the case study cards have a consistent layout, but the content within them is inconsistent. The label at the top of each card varies. On the first card, it refers to the timeline of the project, and on others, it refers to the type of the project. So to improve this, stick to one consistent labeling. And looking at the thumbnail images, the section would look more polished if they all followed the same style. For example, using the style of the first thumbnail, a logo, 1 or 2 screens displayed in realistic device mockups. And regarding the case study titles, using just the name of the product or the company doesn't provide much context for recruiters. So make the titles more descriptive, giving a hint about the project's focus or outcome. Additionally, your descriptions are a bit too long. And remember that this is the teaser phase, so include just enough information to grab attention and encourage viewers to explore further. And with that, let's dive into the first case study, because most reviewers will click on the first one. And I think because it opened in a new tab, I hope you can see it now. So I really like the hero section because it follows the same layout as the hero section on the homepage, and this makes the browsing experience cohesive. And the subtitle is concise and informative, giving a clear overview of what the case study is about. So you should consider using the subtitle for the case study thumbnail on your homepage too. And scrolling further, I can see that this case study provides an overview of smaller projects or features for the same client done in an agency setting. And this is a great way to showcase smaller features without overloading your portfolio with multiple short case studies. And after this overview part, you present one of the features that you worked on in detail. And the name of the first part, design research, is a bit confusing. So I recommend using terms such as research, UX research, or discovery for more clarity. And it's great that you included supporting visuals for each section, but they could be improved. So right now they feel slightly out of place because they don't match the portfolio's design language. They are in light mode while the rest of the page is in dark mode. Additionally, some visuals feel unnecessary because they contain only text, like this one. So instead of placing the text inside images, consider incorporating it directly into the case study's main body for a clearer and a more cohesive look. And let's move on to the next section. In this section, the visuals are a bit difficult to understand because there is a lot going on inside them. So set the context before introducing the visuals and keep only the screens with the annotations in the images, removing any extra text that could be integrated into the case study's body, like the objectives here. Also, use arrows to show what you are referring to exactly on the screens. And this will make your visuals cleaner, more focused, and easier to understand. And after the discovery phase, you jump right to the final solution without showing your process. And this makes your story feel incomplete. A case study should not just present the final solution, but also show how you arrived there. So walk viewers through the key stages of the project, including challenges, iterations, design decisions that shaped the final solution. And after this, the typical workflow section includes a lot of detail about how other team members work. But this information is not directly relevant to your portfolio. So try to focus on your workflow, and you can effectively showcase this by integrating your process into the story itself. And lastly, the conclusion is a great way to end the case study, but improving the visual hierarchy in this section would help highlight the key takeaways more effectively. And again, I'm not sure that you need this visual here. And now let's go back to the home page to find out more about you. And there is an About section right after the case studies. And this is great because it adds a personal touch. However, I recommend placing it on a separate page so it's easier to access without excessive scrolling. And I love that you share your values and principles, but your professional background is missing. So start with your professional journey, highlighting your key roles and skills before diving into the values and personal interests. And your transition from industrial product design to UX is a fascinating part of your story. So make sure you highlight that together with the transferable skills. And here you have a unique facts section, which is great. It's engaging and adds personality. And actually consider pulling one of these facts into the headline to hook recruiters immediately, as they might not scroll far enough to see these otherwise. And finally, the testimonials at the end are a fantastic addition. They provide instant credibility and build trust. And you also added some links at the end, and this is really useful, but the visuals feel unnecessary and actually just make it harder to find the links because of the inconsistent layout. So to improve clarity, consider removing these visuals and using secondary or link buttons instead of using primary buttons everywhere. Also, double check that all the links are working properly because I tried the LinkedIn button and currently it just opens LinkedIn instead of directing viewers to your profile. But overall, I think this is shaping up to be a strong and well-structured portfolio. So let's recap some tweaks that you can do to make it even stronger. First of all, make the navigation simple and intuitive. Remove the hamburger menu and place the links at the top of the page for easier access. Then make your headline more impactful by highlighting your unique value. Enhance the case study cards, design consistent thumbnail images, craft engaging titles, and keep descriptions concise. And refine the About section. Focus more on your professional journey and emphasize transferable skills from your previous roles. And remember, less is more, so remove unnecessary visuals from the footer and your case studies. And showcase your process in case studies. Present the key stages to show how you move from insights to solution. And with these refinements, your portfolio will be polished and impactful and free of red flags. And with that, we can actually move on to the second portfolio. So I will share that. And let's start with the first impression again. So this portfolio makes a strong first impression with its clean design, great visual hierarchy, and consistency, signaling strong UI skills. There are no distractions, and the hero section effectively communicates who the designer is and what they do and where they're based, making it clear and engaging from the start. And before diving into the headline, let's take a look at the navigation. And this is a great example of a straightforward navigation. A recruiter can instantly access everything they need: work, process, testimonials, about, and resume, without unnecessary links. So this ensures a really smooth browsing experience. And now let's look at the hero section. So the headline is very well crafted. It clearly states the designer's current role, followed by a concise, impactful statement highlighting what makes them stand out. So 6+ years of experience, expertise in enterprise SaaS, and data-driven approach. However, the 2 buttons in this section feel a bit unnecessary, since they simply scroll to the sections that are already accessible from the navigation. So I'd recommend replacing them with a strong contact CTA, such as a Let's Connect button linking to your email or LinkedIn profile. This will make it easier for recruiters to reach out instantly. Now let's scroll through the work section. The case study cards are well designed and visually consistent, each of them including a logo, the key project details, a descriptive title, clear CTAs, and a high-quality device mockup showcasing a key screen from the project. And I particularly like the simple, flat mockup style because it keeps the focus on the design itself. The only suggestion I have is to remove the Visit Website button from the case study cards, as they might disrupt the flow of reviewing the portfolio. Instead, consider placing them within the case study in a less prominent position. This way, recruiters stay engaged with your portfolio before navigating elsewhere. Now, let's jump into the first case study. And I really like the loading animation. It was very subtle and it adds a professional feel to the portfolio. So these are the kind of animations that actually elevate the experience rather than distracting from the content. And the hero section is concise yet informative, immediately setting the stage for the project with these key details. And the visual teaser of the final solution is a great way to spark interest in the process. And after the initial context, we get a concise overview of the company and the feature, followed by an impact section with numbers, which is a really strong addition, and it immediately highlights measurable results. Then the case study moves into key challenges, role and contribution, and the visual breakdown of how the platform works. So this case study has a very strong start, but then it jumps to the final designs, and the process is missing entirely. So this leaves a gap in the story, making it difficult to understand how the designer works. There is a button at the end to the company website where more detailed case studies are available. However, viewers would need to search for the specific feature, and recruiters may give up before actually finding it. Additionally, sending viewers elsewhere interrupts your narrative. So I recommend keeping the full story within the portfolio, guiding recruiters through your design process without distractions. And this case study was really small, so let's see another one. We can navigate back to the home page from the footer, which is great. And let's see the only case study that's a mobile project. And I really like that this case study follows the same structure as the previous one. It makes it much easier to scan and compare projects. The title of this case study feels more like a pitch for the product rather than your contribution. So try to focus on what you did and how your work made a difference in the project. And this case study also does a great job at setting the scene. It presents the problem, the goal, and the solution. And I especially like that you present the solution upfront, as this acts as a teaser and motivates viewers to find out how you got there, something that many designers overlook. So the beginning is, again, very strong, but the ending feels abrupt, wrapping up with the final designs without showing how you arrived there. So again, to turn this into a complete story, present the key stages, including research findings, iterations, design decisions, and how insights from usability testing or feedback shape the final outcome. And one great aspect is that at the end of the case study, we have some results such as client satisfaction and positive user feedback. So these effectively demonstrate the value of your work. Now, let's go back to the home page and look at some other sections. So under the work section, we can see the principles, tools, and testimonials. And these sections are all designed in the same consistent style, making them really easy to scan. And finally, you've included a short about section with a professional profile picture, which is great for introducing the person behind the work. And this section keeps the focus on the professional background, giving recruiters a quick overview of the designer's work experience. But if you'd like to share more about your personal side, then consider turning this section into a dedicated About page, as that would allow you to include additional details without making the homepage too long. And in the footer, there are some links to professional social media profiles such as LinkedIn, Behance, and Dribbble, which is a great addition as it allows recruiters to explore more of your work and connect with you easily. So overall, this portfolio is really strong of visual design and communicating your value proposition. The clean and consistent design language and content-focused layouts make it highly professional and engaging. But to maximize its impact, I recommend enhancing the storytelling in case studies by adding more details about the process, and this will turn them into compelling narratives. And that wraps up the portfolio reviews. So it's over to you, Sophia. You're muted.
See, thank you. Thank you so much for reviewing the portfolios. I hope that they were well accepted by by the community. I see that we already have a comment, so thank you. Hopefully the insights were helpful. And Réka, thank you for joining us and sharing all the findings and your tips with us. We still have a few minutes left, and I did find a few more questions. Are you open to answering them, or would you prefer that we wrap up the session?
I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, let me just pull up the ones that I saw in the meantime. Just a second, as it has passed now. Okay. Okay, this is a very interesting one, and I think it can kind of be a broader question, and that is, how do I mention that I've done a design system course and I'm quite aware and have knowledge of it, but I have not implemented on projects yet? So I think it can go further from design systems, right? How can designers and UX professionals show their expertise when they're not applying that knowledge yet, or haven't had the chance to apply that knowledge yet to some projects they're doing, or the work that they're doing every day?
Mm-hmm. This is a great question. So first of all, you can include that in your headline if you really want to highlight that you learned about design systems or anything else. And another way to showcase this is on your About page. So you can include any certifications on your About page.
Awesome, thank you. And one question from me before we wrap up is, we've been hearing a lot about making different portfolios, adjusting it to the job you're applying, also different categories, slide decks, everything that, you know, as a UX professional, you need kind of have on your hand. But how often do you think that realistically designers should be updating their portfolio? And what do you have any tips for keeping the portfolios fresh?
Yes, honestly, constantly. So you should work on your portfolio even when you have a job. because while working on a project, you should document it and make notes that will be useful when building a case study. And then after finishing a project, you can build a case study before you forget the details or lose access to designs and metrics. So ideally, you should constantly update your portfolio.
Good. Something that I always like to ask whenever we have somebody talking about portfolios, and I think it always boils down to stay active and stay fresh and keep it fresh, no matter how comfortable you feel. I think this is a great tip. Like while you still remember things and while you still have access to metrics. Thank you, Réka, for everything. For everyone who joined us today, thank you for being such an engaged audience. It was really nice to try to tackle all the questions that were here. We will be sending out the recording so you can watch it anytime you want. And if you enjoyed today's session and want to stay connected with Réka, feel free to follow her on LinkedIn. Hoping Akash will drop the link in the comments, but you also have it on the page, and I will link it in the follow-up email. Another tip from me is for those who are looking for ways to add projects to their portfolio without any work experience previous, try your best to maybe design a passion project. You can always represent that and show your skills there. Or you can also try doing, at Uxcel, we have design briefs, so you can get small bits and pieces of real life projects to add to your portfolio. And, we also get some feedback from our mentors. So it's a great way for those who are just trying to break into the industry. But having said all of that, we're always, interested in improving what we do. So feel free to share feedback for both Réka and me, what we can do better and how we can bring you an even better session in the future. Réka, before I wrap everything up, is there anything else you would like to say to everyone?
Just thank you so much for the opportunity, Sophia. This was a great session, and it was. I am always really happy when I have the opportunity to share insights about portfolios.
Thank you. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed. I personally very much enjoyed it, and would love to have like a little post of all the breakdowns that we had of the red flags. Some were saved. We'll have to do it. But thank you once again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for all of our upcoming sessions. Be sure to check out UXfolio. And if you want to stay in touch, our community is discord.gg/Uxcel. You guys also have a community, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully, again, I will link it in the follow-up email. Thank you, and have a lovely rest of the day, everyone.
Bye.